So Johnny's going to talk to us about AI and the impacts it's having on us.
Yeah, and this is it's more of a discussion. So I'm gonna just throw some things out there and on both sides of the positive and negative of AI. And yeah, feel free to take the stage and contribute your thoughts. All right, so AI's impact on human prosperity, mental and physical health. So one thing that we're seeing is a real brain drain in the USA. I mean, it's worldwide as well, but especially in the USA, where we have been the top innovators globally for 200 plus years. And what we're seeing is that students are delegating their thoughts, delegating tasks, even the most trivial things, trivial arithmetic, to tools like ChatGPT and Gemini, all this other stuff. So we're seeing that not only you would think that the use of having to type and then read what the AI says would it increase the reading comprehension, but it's actually degrading it. So the introduction of AI into schools, especially the Google stuff, I don't want to get into that too much, but the Google ecosystem in the schools is monitoring what the kids are saying. They're offering Gemini to the kids so that the kids can delegate all their thoughts, everything to it. Not good. That's actually why I ran for school board a couple of years ago, was because of the fact I want to get the Google ecosystem out. And as we know, the Google ecosystem, or Google or Alphabet, the parent company, is very tied together with our intelligence apparatus. So NSA, CIA have a direct, what's called a fire hose pipeline to the data that Google collects. And so the intelligence apparatus can essentially predict what the more data they collect from kids, the more they can predict, the more they can manipulate them. So it's getting pretty bad. The new laws regarding AI, or not really laws, but executive orders that incorporate AI into government, incorporate it into schools, and all sorts of stuff. They've given the keys away, essentially. So the government has given the keys away to private companies to collect intelligence and collude with private companies. And if you've seen recently Claude, the Claude code, or Claude AI, they refused at first to submit to letting our government use AI to kill people and stuff like that. Sort of I think it was kind of performative, but I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, many studies have come out recently that have shown that subjects that use ChatGPT over time, their cognitive, like less white matter, their brains literally were atrophying. They underperform linguistic, behavioral, everything. The safeguards are essentially defined by a very elite sect of Silicon Valley, morally bankrupt elitists who basically put in these thought policing safeguards, which impose their values and will gaslight people into believing certain things. So if you ask, oh yeah, what is the survival rate of measles? It's going to say, the vaccines are safer and effective. You should get the vaccine. But if you look at the numbers, if you critically think, measles, you have a 99.998% chance of survival from it in the USA. And that's largely because we have things like sanitation now. We have, we have clean water. And hydration is one of the keys. Hydration and sanitation, and also environments that are conducive to recovering from sickness are all much more commonplace, and that's why people can survive measles much more in the past 200 years versus 1,000 years ago. These AI platforms will push the mainstream narrative. It will push establishment orthodoxy, which is sometimes defined by the CIA, sometimes defined by these Silicon Valley elitists, and it won't give a truly objective and truly transparent reasoning for why it's providing that solution or that conclusion. And so it gaslights people. It truly does. Everything you say to an AI that's not on your own device is being recorded and sent to the government. So OpenAI, Grok is like one of the worst one. That is, Musk had often said, "Oh, free speech as absolutist," all this other stuff, but it sounded great. But X and XAI are actually kind of a honeypot. So if you use Grok too much, if you use Grok at all, really, they're collecting intelligence on you, on how to manipulate you. It's really not good. So they've been colluding with the government more than even OpenAI was before OpenAI signed all those contracts.
So what I was getting at earlier, or I raised my hand about, was basically I was reading today that 85% of all our vaccines are manufactured in China. So,
wow.
Yeah, and I was studying this heavily, and there is a cancer researcher we're working with on, she's giving us different types of information because we were going to start a blog on it and a podcast. So anyway, I just wanted everybody to be aware, our nemesis, China, creates 85% of all our vaccines.
Wow, that's messed up.
And then also the food production, the hormones in the food, the food that we eat and the chemicals that they spray affects, our health care system, dramatically. And it's taking a toll too, I think. So those were things I was concerned with, data centers. That's why, I wanted to chime in here and see, so I like what I'm hearing though. And that's all I had to really say. I just wanted to mention those items.
Yeah, thank you for that contribution. I appreciate it. That's messed up about the vaccines being made in China. I don't necessarily consider China a nemesis. Oh, go ahead, Richard.
No, finish your thought, please, because I agree. I don't consider China a nemesis either so much. It's a rival, certainly, but just assuming it's an enemy per se is kind of reflects a mentality, the kind of mentality that frequently gets us into war. But yeah, finish your thoughts. Sorry, I was going to make a different point.
We do know that manufacturing in China often has led to arsenic in even in the glazes of bowls, like ceramic bowls. You have arsenic and lead and all that stuff. So yeah, historically, we can't trust anything that comes out of China, even from that. But also the robotics that they've been selling at really low prices. They have back doors, and even our military was using them for a little bit. Like the quadrupeds that you could order from China. It's like, why would they do that? We can build them here.
Yeah, I was gonna. First of all, I think this is great. I think you've really highlighted many of the problems with AI here, and that this is an excellent summation. But, I would just suggest that, like many technologies, it's not the technology itself that's inherently bad, but when it's in the hands of self-interested profiteers that are looking to use it, for certain purposes like war making, or like thought control, like policing thoughts, like surveillance, like collecting data on people, all these things, that's really the problem. So, I think we have to look at the actors. Just to give one example, I think AI could have both negative and positive potential in education. You've already highlighted some of the negative, right? If it's used as a substitute for, teaching, if it's used to indoctrinate people with certain dogmas, all that sort of thing, that's a danger. On the other hand, the point's been made to me that, for example, in teaching math, right? Typical math instructor, you've got 25, 30 kids in the class. You do certain exercises. You're supposed to show your work. The teacher may not be able to give individual attention to each student, whereas if with some AI applications, the student can be working on the problem and the AI can be there and say, no, you made a mistake. Here's the mistake where you made it right here. This is what you did wrong, and actually explain it in a one-on-one way. So there's a potential for AI to be very helpful in education in a way that someone who's a teacher teaching 25 kids at a time can't give the same amount of individualized attention. So, I think, once again, I think what we have to look at is not so much the technology itself, but who's controlling it and how it is being used, more than just the technology itself. That's just the point I wanted to make on that. Thanks.
But yeah, I mean, there are some very suspicious activities by China. For example, they bring a lot of foreign, they have a lot of students that come here, and they displace American students in computer science degrees and paths, and because of them hogging up so many spots in our universities for STEM paths, we are also having a brain drain here just from that too. So like there's a university in Illinois where they have 6,000 foreign national Chinese students, and they're all in STEM. And that displaces American students who wanted to go there. And it's because there's all these incentives to bring in foreigners on visas to study at our universities because they have money. They have lots of money. Yeah, go ahead, Denise.
I was just going to mention that before you go on to the bright side items, one more a part about the brain drain. It's not just AI that's causing our brains to atrophy. It's relying on Google Maps, using maps instead of using our brains to get around town. People lose their ability to think in that way. When you're not using those neural networks in your brain for whatever specific task it's supposed to be used for, they atrophy, they go away. So we're hurting ourselves in some ways with some of the tech.
So yeah, there's a lot of downsides, but there's also a lot of upsides, bright sides, which are kind of hard to find, actually, kind of hard to think about, because there's so many dark side to it. There is a lot of positives. Like, for example, medical error is the third leading cause of death in the USA, and the big tech companies tried really hard to suppress that fact, right? So like, pharmaceutical companies, health insurance companies, all these companies did the best they could to lobby and squelch any evidence of medical error being the third leading cause of death, and it spiked to the number one cause of death during the COVID era, where it was the whole pandemic going on, where medical error was a rampant cause of death. So because of that, AI has such a huge potential to reduce error and improve care and elderly care and a huge variety of reducing debilitating side effects of medical error. We have many tools that have been built recently that can predict and diagnose disease much more accurate than any kind of doctor, and that's thanks to AI, and we have so much potential to advance more in that area. Yeah, I mean, robotics are absolutely huge potential for doing surgeries. Like in Japan, they've done tens of thousands of surgeries with robotics that are far more accurate, far more capable than any human. And as Rich was saying, it really depends on who controls the AI. Like if you have our government or the companies that do the AI training and run the inference running the AI, then of course we are going to be at risk of being, assassinated essentially, because there's certain people that meet a certain criteria of wrong think, the pattern of not going with the mainstream orthodoxy, that makes us targets for malicious AI to disable us or hurt us. So yeah. Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I would say, I think you'd said something about it already in terms of propaganda. That machine will be even more effective than it has been prior. And my concern absolutely would be the fact that the intel communities run our country along with the Vatican. If you read Operation Gladio, and the mob, since World War II. So the idea that we're going to create something and we're going to call our senators and Congress people and say, don't hurt us, when they have for 70 some years, to me is just completely unrealistic. My hope had been when Donald Trump was elected, and the people that seemed to be pushing for him to be elected this go around, despite his complete failure last time, seemed to be decent people that gave me some hope, even though in 2 years or 4 years that can always change and it could be evil people again. My hope was he was going to burn a lot of it down.
Yeah, accountability. Honestly, I think when it comes to enabling or democratizing the use of AI, as long as it's not controlled by a central, like a central intelligence agency, for example, but like a decentralized on-device AI where it is in your best interests, not in the best interests of the state, that's where AI can really prevail and move things forward positively. So when it comes to things like accountability, or protecting people, you can get objective, unbiased assistance from AI tools and robotics, if you're hosting your own models on your own hardware. So what I'm looking forward to the next few years is more custom homegrown training of AI So like there's something called obliteration. It's called spelled with a ABLIT, obliteration. And that is the erosion of safeguards and stuff like that in large language models. And when you do that, you can get it to be more of an objective tool rather than a thought police that tries to steer you towards certain thinking, or try to push, or it also removes the mechanisms of it refusing to do things. So if you're like, oh, hey,
who would decide what is objectivity? I mean, isn't objectivity just a collection or a collective of subjectivity where there's an agreed amount of subjectivity that seems to coincide with one another, and then we call that objectivity?
well, see that, I mean, that's the beauty of training your own models and running it on your own hardware, is that you define objectivity for yourself and for your own model. So, for example, if you ask ChatGPT right now, how do I make thermate, right? They're going to be like, oh, are you going to go like use thermate to stop a data center from being made? Like use a drone or something and drop it on one of those bulldozers or something, so you disable all of the so completely stop their progress of making a data center, for example. If you ask your own model that's been obliterated, you like, how do I make thermate? It will tell you. But if you ask ChatGPT, it's probably not going to tell you how to make thermate, right? I mean, in the past, before they had a lot of those safeguards that these morally bankrupt Silicon Valley people put in, I used to be able to say, hey, how do I make thermite? And it would give me the chemical composition, right? And the instructions. Now, I don't think that's too possible, but might be. But you can't even say like, oh yeah, tell me a joke about disabled people. Like, it's like, oh, that's wrong. Like, I'm not going to do that. But if you use obliteration, you train your own model, it will tell you all the most, painful jokes about disabled people, for example. I'm just saying, a tool should not be telling you the moral fabric of what you believe. It should be defined by what you believe is moral. It should just be a tool. Go ahead, Denise.
I will just say that I have really been enjoying working with Gemini for some of the complex accounting solutions I've had to do, and I'm finding it very beneficial. But I do have to read carefully all the answers, and because I find the mistakes it makes. It's not a fail-safe, 100% thing. You have to use your own brain to verify that what it's saying is true.
The notion of on machine or private AI, I think, can be easily explained this way. If you're not a gearhead, think of AI in its ChatGPT world as having read every book and every news article and every page on the internet. And the question is, you have access to every book theoretically in the world and every page on the internet yourself. AI makes it fast and accessible for you. If you could confront the internet with a child filter so that you didn't read anything dangerous, versus say, I'm smart enough to be able to read the internet however I wish to and make whatever decisions, whether that's thermite, Johnny, I just remind you, we are recording this meeting with Google. In concept, you would ideally have well-trained, literate people read every page and make their own decision. And that's really what personal AI means. So, Mike, the concept of objectivity is whatever you think objectivity is, which, of course, you're no more objective than I am, but at least you control your own narrative. And that would be one of the coolest would be to have personal technology with the entire storehouse of every book and page in the world, and then for you to ask your own questions. You will be accountable for developing a bomb or coming up with a crazy idea, but you will also be an innovator able to do something with your brain. Whereas if you had child controls on it, which is kind of what Google Gemini or other ones do, if you had those child controls, you wouldn't be able to truly be free. This is free and dangerous, but I think many of us might choose free and dangerous over safe and limited.
Yeah, I agree that free and dangerous is the right way to go. I mean, anybody can pick up a knife, right? They can pick up a knife and buy a knife and do something illegal and harmful with it. But most people instead cut vegetables. So the fact is, I think that not necessarily fact, but I think it's just it's wrong to limit a tool so that the government has access to it unfiltered, no safeguards, while the public has a child version of it. And I don't think that, in terms of firearms and everything like that, I don't think government people should be allowed firearms unless they pass certain strict checks. And I don't think citizens should have firearms until they pass those background checks as well. But the truth is we should just have access to the same stuff. And that's what I believe. And I don't think there should be any suppression. Even all these like ID verification checks that they want online, like YouTube is asking for people to verify their age and everything, just to surf the internet. It's really, it's the internet is truly is the trove of knowledge, and AI should not be suppressed, and neither should the internet. Where the first humanoid robots were deployed in Ukraine, so that they can murder more Russians. In one way, this would be good if it were like American soldiers that were being displaced. So instead, we should be sending humanoid robots to Iran, not actual soldiers. But yeah, Ukraine is like the testing ground for drones and training AI to better murder people. So in some sense, we save lives because we don't lose our own soldiers. In another sense, it also is training robots to kill people, and it's drone warfare in Ukraine is killing record numbers of people, and that's just that's disturbing. China has, in terms of like the flying drones, they have hundreds of thousands, maybe millions, but they have more than we do. That's for sure, and they're also ahead in the AI game. And part of the reason they're ahead in AI is because they do not censor their AI. They do not do the safeguards that our Silicon Valley elites do. So
is it believed AI could surpass human knowledge? Of course, you would have to quantify what that would even be, which I can't pretend to know how I would quantify the cap of human knowledge. And if it's only exposed to the entirety of human knowledge, it seems kind of like a closed system to me, where it couldn't surpass it by definition because its only ability is to evaluate it, and there's nothing outside of it. So, especially if it is reliant on programming, especially if it's to look for the status quo as though that is the correct answer. Because I can't think of anything innovative that ever happens when the status quo is followed. There's so many examples in history of people that thought outside the box, as they say, and were killed for it at times, or threatened, certainly, because they stepped outside of the status quo. Is it believed that AI, though, could surpass human knowledge, and how would one even quantify that, or even quantify what human knowledge is in order to make that point clear as day?
Yeah, I mean, nobody really knows as to whether or not.
But
One thing
they'll
is
still make statements either that, yeah, it can, which of course they won't quantify it, or show the math, which I'd love to see the math.
Yeah, and well, many of the top researchers have already concluded that LLMs are not the path to artificial general intelligence, or to surpass human capabilities. Even though, yeah, they can certainly look like that, and they do have immediate access to a lot more knowledge than a human could. Most of the researchers have concluded that LLMs are not the path, that there's something else, possibly more inspired by neural networks. But nobody really knows. So
One of my fears, and it's not, and I already know that it's going to happen, I believe, is there's going to be a reliance on it, that when you enter something, and I'm sure that most of Americans already think that you can enter something somewhere and it's going to give you the most rational or reasonable or correct answer. I'd love to see a poll on that, but I would guess it's over 50% believe AI currently, which is, to me, why the most impressive tool for those people that are in power will be, of course, to manipulate and control people.
Yeah, I was just going to make the point, as far as use in warfare, obviously the decision of whether to go to war, there were some comments in the chat earlier, I didn't consider using robots to murder Russians as being on the bright side. It really comes down to, is the war itself justified, and what's the purpose? To me, it would only make sense to use AI for defensive purposes. Not any kind of offensive purposes, not for any more illegal wars. The other thing I'd point out is that it's also, I think, a real key danger, and something to be avoided, is the extent to which AI might be used to make decisions on who to kill. Right? You've got these drones, and they have AI systems operating them, and they're the ones making decision. Is that an enemy, or is that on our side? And you're going to trust the AI to make the decision as to, this is the person that ought to be killed. These fallible systems are now going to be entrusted to that. There's some really serious dangers with using this technology, in the military applications of it. The other point I want to make is kind of more of a broader one. I do agree with you, Jonny, for the most part, that we don't want to over-regulate, but there are certain areas where I think we definitely do need regulation, like, allowing AI to make decisions on who to kill, right? Or allowing AI to police our speech on the internet and then censor it and decide who gets shadow banned or who gets, kicked off Facebook or whatever. Or using AI for surveillance purposes, like you pointed out in the earlier slide, or at least without probable cause and respecting our Fourth Amendment. And the point I'd like to bring this around to is all of this, I think, underscores the importance of what we're doing in this petition drive right now. because the only way we're going to get regulation that's actually going to be serving the public interest and the public good is to have a government that's actually run by the people and not these the self-interested puppets of the ruling class in this country that are going to be using it for surveillance purposes and are going to be using it for censorship and are going to be using it to replace teachers rather than enhance education and replace so many jobs and so on. The only way we're going to get regulation is to get people in government who aren't going to be part of the regulatory capture, and to make sure that the regulations themselves are going to serve the public interest. And that means getting people elected to office representing, people who stand up for the principles of the Independence Party and the things we're trying to do. This whole issue and what we're trying to grapple with here is really, really something that should motivate all of us to get out there and be gathering as many petitions as we can for Gary and Alejandro and our other candidates so that we can get on the ballot. And then in 2028, start electing really good people to Congress that are going to be doing the regulating rather than the same instruments of the ruling class, the same instruments of the Silicon Valley billionaires who are calling the shots now, and the agents of big pharma and the military industrial complex and all that. This issue really underscores the importance of what we're doing in this campaign in 2026.
As you guys know, the vast majority of our politicians are technologically illiterate, and they put people like Peter Thiel and Vance, who's like a puppet of Peter Thiel, in charge of essentially our AI and drone activities, and they're so deeply embedded in our intelligence apparatus now that they're gonna punish wrongthink. So and they already do that, but the collusion between government and tech companies is closer and more intertwined than it ever has been before. And the whole reason I even was supporting Kennedy in the first place was because for him for president was because he wanted to dismantle that collusion between government and tech companies in terms of surveillance and policing wrongthink, and yeah, so what we really need to do is get morally good people in office, and the Independence Party offers that. So that's why we really need to get Gary and Alex on the ballot, so that in future years we can easily get other candidates, or more easily get other candidates on the ballot who are not technologically illiterate, or at the very least are morally good and can delegate to the right people, not to people like Peter Thiel and Musk, who want to punish people that think differently or think let's be honest, think against Israel. If you speak against it, you are instantly on a list, and you are shadow banned all across the spectrum of social media.
Yes, I wanted to add that not just independent party, but all third parties are a way to make these two parties, the uniparty, work as they should. So we are kind of like an equalizer to make, hey, Republicans, aren't you supposed to be conservative? Why aren't you? Hey, Democrats, aren't you supposed to be for freedoms and independent rights? Why aren't you? And we need that middle ground to break up that uniparty and make it fair and free again.
Yeah, or ACLU, where are you? Where were you during COVID? what American civil liberties do you actually defend anymore, other than illegal immigrants, which are not American citizens?
Yeah, I guess education in terms of how to use it properly. To not always be skeptical of it. Ultimately, I think it should not have safeguards, and instead, people should just be on their own in terms of, or the schools should also be teaching literacy, tech literacy, in terms of how inaccurate AI could be, how the AI could try to gaslight you or whatever, and not to rely on it. So that's my contribution in terms of safety. I don't think there should be any kind of safeguards at all. It's a tool. It's like a gun, right?
So there's nothing, is there anything that you think should be outlawed? Bob gave the example of cloning. So are there specific no-go practices like cloning that we should advocate staying away from? What is the cloning type ban that we should have against aspects of AI?
I would say probably in corporate governance, where determining if someone qualifies for health insurance, if they qualify for a medical procedure, if they qualify for government jobs, things in terms of making decisions for hiring people, doing a procedure on someone, putting someone in prison, the things that really need to be delegated to humans or a jury should not be delegated to AI.